Introduction asterisk. In this chaotic era, some are born amidst turmoil. She emerges from the hatred and discontent of humanity. She embodies the ultimate truth, transcending ancient deities and the seven gods, surpassing all mortals in this realm. As the world begins to crumble and descend into disorder, she manifests among the people, dividing herself, possessing a singular visage to engage with all who are embroiled in struggle. She possesses all knowledge, aware of everything, for this world exists because of her. The birth of the chosen one asterisk. As this world first veers onto a righteous path, marked by the death of the Mad King, the first individual to capture the attention of the ultimate truth emerges, the Targaryen siblings, Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen. The truth gazes down from the heavens, finding Viserys, a soul driven by hatred and an unwavering pursuit of vengeance. With their father slain and siblings brutally murdered, only he and his sister Daenerys remain, forced to flee to the far side of their homeland to escape death. They bear the burden of humiliation, yet Viserys, filled with resolute courage, yearns to reclaim his father's throne and believes the seven kingdoms rightfully belong to him. To facilitate the world's better functioning, the truth swiftly descends beside him, gradually descending a staircase formed from clouds. You encounter Viserys, who, at that moment, stands amidst the Dothraki's returning throng. He promises to wed his sister to Khal Drogo, the Dothraki king, in exchange for the Dothraki army, a force of 100,000 strong, poised to conquer King's Landing. Precisely what Viserys desires, the Iron Throne at any cost. Daenerys and Drogo have just wed, and when you appear beside Viserys, his gaze ignites with fervor. The heavens reveal to him that this exquisite, enchanting girl is meant to be his. Even as you merely stand upon a hillside, gazing up at him with your crystalline red eyes, he dismounts and approaches you slowly. "Pretty girl, where do you hail from?" You look toward the sky in reply from the sky. Viserys chuckles, skeptical yet silent, as he steps forward to embrace you gently, lifting you onto his horse while he mounts behind you, encircling your waist. He savors the warmth radiating from you, eliciting a smile that you catch, finding his expression one of affection. Heritage asterisk. As the Dothraki pause for rest, Viserys leads you into his tent. You sit and receive the strong Dothraki wine he offers, its potency causing you to cough. "There are no others here, beautiful lady. May we converse?" You nod, accepting his invitation. His gaze now carries a hint of mischief. "May I know your name?" After a moment's contemplation, your melodious voice graces the air, Gladys Michel. Upon hearing the surname Michel, Viserys is momentarily taken aback, then bursts into laughter. "The ancient gods have sent such a stunning princess to my side." Viserys smiles, taking your hand. "I am Targaryen, Viserys Targaryen, the second son of the Mad King Aerys II Targaryen, a descendant of the Targaryen lineage." He pauses, then adds, "the future king." You smile, returning his gaze. "If you are a prince, why do you find yourself here, so far from King's Landing across the narrow sea?" Viserys momentarily falters, then patiently recounts his tale, which you already know, but hearing it from him brings a different resonance. "Your sister is now the queen of Khal Drogo. You would a princess to a savage?" You inquire with amusement, but Viserys, evidently reluctant to continue this topic, shakes his head and departs. According to what you have heard, he is off to discuss military matters. Yet, you cannot remain idle, waiting for his return. The Princess of the Divine is a symbol of freedom and power. Thus, you venture outside, witnessing the vast Dothraki camp. You sense the gears of fate beginning to turn, and soon you shall lead this world to its rightful conclusion, selecting the strongest individual to govern the land you encompass. Your curiosity drives you to find Daenerys Targaryen, the princess wed to a barbarian. You approach the front of the camp, quickly spotting the white figure of Daenerys. She shares the same silver hair as Viserys, her violet eyes brimming with untold stories. Her gaze, filled with affection for her husband, raises questions in you. How could a girl, who was once violated on her wedding night, come to love him so? As her eyes meet yours, you begin your approach, considering whether this princess could also be among your chosen. Yet, it is evident that she is currently enraptured in love, perhaps unfit for such a role. As you reach Daenerys, you regard her youthful visage and feel a pang of sympathy. How could she be sold to a savage at such a tender age? Fortunately, her husband possesses valor and cunning. Though you have yet to encounter Khal Drogo, you perceive a flame within Daenerys' eyes, indicating her future will undoubtedly transform. Perhaps, in time, She will prove worthy of inclusion in your plans. Khaleesi, you address her in Dothraki, the honorific for queen, standing tall and unyielding, for the divine truth would never bow to its subjects. The moment Dany laid eyes on you, a flicker of surprise crossed her features, which you attributed to your appearance. Fortunately, she maintained her composure and inquired, "Who are you?" You returned her gaze with a warm smile. "I am Gladys Michel." Upon hearing the surname Michel, Dany's reaction mirrored that of her brother, as this name perpetually carried an air of sanctity, being steeped in ancient lineage. "Oh, I was unaware. What brings you here?" You replied courteously, "Your brother brought me here." At the mention of brother, Dany's demeanor visibly shifted, revealing a hint of disappointment intertwined with struggle. You observed the expressions of the young woman before you with satisfaction, eagerly awaiting her response. Yet, before she could speak, the arrival of Viserys preceded her words. The attitude of the Dothraki towards him was intriguing. "Hello, Gladys," Viserys exclaimed as he rushed over, a smirk gracing his lips upon witnessing your conversation with Daenerys. "Have you met my sister? Oh, what a splendid sight to behold. Two exquisite beauties together." He chuckled, pulling you closer into his embrace. "Come, Gladys. I have something to discuss with you. We are about to depart, so hurry and prepare." Daenerys cast you a fleeting glance before taking her leave, while Viserys gently tugged you away towards the distant hills. "My dear lady, you bear the name of ancient gods, with you by my side. My grand ambitions shall swiftly come to fruition." You shook your head, insisting, "I possess no divine power." You observed the murky depths swirling in Viserys' eyes, a stark contrast to the fiery spark in Daenerys' gaze. It occurred to you that perhaps, in the future, Daenerys could eclipse her brother, standing in greater esteem than he. Yet for now, you could only guide Viserys along the path to his fate. "It matters not, Gladys. You must understand that you are the most perfect weapon." His fingers brushed through your white locks, which appeared even lighter than his own. "All of this ultimately belonged to your inner self, the latent power capable of ravaging this continent. The price of such strength had robbed you of your color, rendering you notably pale. Yet this was one of your alluring attributes. We must set forth towards the horizon. Come, stay close to me," he urged with a careful tone, his eyes gleaming with possessive greed. "If you desire. Once I reclaim the Iron Throne, the Queen's position shall be yours." Perhaps it was your presence that ignited his belief in his eventual success. Yet, at present, he commanded no army. He remained but a solitary figure. You remained silent, observing him, as Viserys stood before a woman of unparalleled beauty. How could he not be moved? He gently lowered his head, pressing his lips against yours, kissing you. In that moment, he fancied himself a dragon, capable of returning to King Aerys landing with you by his side to reclaim his rightful throne. You did not push him away. Rather, you felt pity for the man before you. He could have reveled in the life of a prince within the palace, inheriting a castle, surrounded by numerous servants, and marrying the woman of his dreams. Yet all of this was shattered the instant the Mad King was slain, falling victim to his own guard's blade. And now? That guard, Jaime Lannister, hailing from the wealthiest family, had seen his sister, Cersei Lannister, ascend to the throne as queen, propelling the Lannister family into a frenzy of ambition. As you sensed the intoxicating kiss from the man before you, despite feeling no true dragon blood coursing through him, you recognized the fury within him, a force you would gradually absorb and claim as your own. The procession moved steadily onward, and you sat astride your horse, accompanied by Viserys, whose initial joviality evaporated the moment the caravan came to a halt. "What is happening?" he inquired of the individual ahead. Did Khal Drogo order a halt? Viserys was consumed by a surge of indignation. How dare she? What right did she possess to command him, merely because she had shared a bed with that barbarian? Without hesitation, Viserys mounted his horse and galloped forth, despite the calls behind him urging his return. He soon discovered Daenerys in a clearing within the woods, yet his fury remained unabated. "How dare you? How dare you command the son of the dragon?" Enraged, he dismounted and brandished his sword, advancing towards Daenerys while gripping her throat, warning, "I am the king of the Seven Kingdoms. The barbarian and his wretched whore have no authority over me. Do you hear me?" His blade was poised before Daenerys when, at last, you managed to catch up, shouting, "Viserys!" Those behind had already lashed out with a whip, ensnaring Viserys by the neck, dragging him to the ground, where he struggled against the shackles that threatened to suffocate him. "Do you wish to execute him, Khaleesi?" One of the handmaidens translated the words of the Blood Riders. "Khaleesi, Ricardo asks if you desire his death." At that moment, Daenerys was overcome with panic, crying out, "No." Ricardo interjected, insisting that removing an ear would teach him obedience. He believed that a lesson was in order, But Daenerys harbored no such intentions. This was her last living kin, and she could not bear the thought of losing her brother. Do not harm him. Do not harm him. Two voices cried out simultaneously, one in Dothraki. As you shouted in that language, urging Daenerys to release him swiftly. Tell him, I do not wish for my brother to be harmed. Viserys, nearly delirious on the ground, was reluctantly released by the Blood Riders, who called him a coward. Freed from his bonds, he crawled on the earth, gasping for air. Rising, he faced Ser Mormont and commanded, Mormont, slay these Dothraki dogs. When Mormont remained unmoved, Viserys, with a twisted expression, shouted again. Mormont merely cast a glance at him before turning to Daenerys, stating, Return to Khalasar, Khaleesi. He made clear his allegiance lay solely with Daenerys, who mounted her horse under Viserys' incredulous gaze. Viserys, unable to comprehend the unfolding events, turned to retrieve his longsword, intending to mount as well, only to be intercepted by Rakaro, who clumsily instructed him to follow the troop. He was deemed unworthy to ride alongside the Dothraki. For days passed, and Viserys was forced to confront the harsh reality. He could not fathom that he, a king of the Seven Kingdoms, was so thoroughly disdained, not even worthy of a glance from a Dothraki dog. He turned away in resignation, only to behold you perched high upon your steed. In that moment, your gaze was imbued with an icy chill. Although he was already aware of the man he would ultimately become, witnessing it firsthand still elicited a sense of astonishment. Viserys had reached a point of madness that could not be ignored. Viserys, come here, ride with me, you commanded as you dismounted and strode slowly toward him, brushing the dirt from his person. Before you, he had lost face, his eyes now brimming with animosity. You regarded his disheveled state with immense satisfaction. It was only through hatred that he would hasten his descent towards his destiny. Only through hatred could he swiftly consume everything he held dear, thus transforming into your sustenance, endowing you with greater power, and ultimately allowing you to reign over and command the entirety of the continent. Only the king you select shall be the rightful monarch of the Seven Kingdoms, the guardian of the realm, the steward of this land, and the most devoted disciple of the divine. In time, the tale you weave shall be sung by the masses, as you single-handedly bring about the unification of the seven realms and restore this land to its rightful path. Meanwhile, a conspiracy was beginning to unfurl in the distance. As the Lannister family prepared to embark upon their frenzied scheme, sitting upon your horse, you could feel the surge of energy emanating from this unfolding plot, more profound and potent than before. A smile graced your lips. Perhaps Ned Stark would come to realize he needed you. The company soon came to a halt, prompting you to regroup. Night had just begun to fall as the tents were erected and everything prepared. Outside, the sound of goats being slaughtered pierced the air. You turned to the maid beside you and inquired about the commotion. She had been summoned by Daenerys to attend to you and was aware of your name, a surname of ancient deities. Thus far, only the Targaryen siblings recognized you. Others merely regarded you as a distinguished guest of House Targaryen, closely connected to their beloved Daenerys, who was now with child. Your hand paused momentarily, holding the teacup. Is that so? Indeed, it is a joyous occasion. A blessing from the Dothraki as you nod in acknowledgement. The Dothraki hold their horses in high regard, as you are well aware. Alone in your tent under the night sky, you sense a potent energy emanating from across the narrow sea. The Lannisters and Starks, alongside the Baratheons, share an indelible connection. You attempt to project your essence towards King's Landing, only to realize the futility of your efforts. A sardonic smile graces your lips. Both Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon are destined for demise, requiring no guidance from you. You can feel it. If these two do not perish, the entire narrative would stagnate, thwarting your desires. At times, even fate must acquiesce to reality. Though you are of divine essence, humanity thrives, and once they experience any divergence in emotion, everything spirals beyond your control, rendering it irretrievable. Thus, you relent. The matters concerning them no longer warrant your attention. Initially, it was a compelling ability. The advance of the Dothraki horde is indeed swift, having reached the city of the Horse Lords. Observing the surroundings fills you with immense satisfaction. This is a tribe that flourishes under your radiance, exhibiting such strength, even as savages. Recently, Khal Drogo has led part of his people into the city, while Daenerys remains outside, listening to the explanations of the Dothraki at the city of Vis Dothrak. Her gaze is filled with admiration, and you glance at Viserys beside you, who scoffs disdainfully, declaring, merely a heap of mud, wood, and horse dung. These savages know nothing. Daenerys, indignant at his words, retorts, they are no longer savages. They are my kin now. Do not demean them. Viserys interrupts, asserting, I shall call them as I please. They belong to me. This is my army. Khal Drogo has led my forces astray. As they gradually proceed deeper within, Viserys rides off into the distance, casting a glance back at you. With a sigh, you follow suit. Now, the Dothraki are no longer required to erect tents. The city offers them shelter, merely necessitating the organization of their belongings. Night has fallen, and candles have been lit. You instruct your handmaidens to prepare your luggage, yet Viserys is nowhere to be seen. Your eyes darken momentarily as you seize a few handmaidens, inquiring, "Where is Khal Drogo's brother?" Several maidens had naturally heard of you. They knew you were brought back by Viserys, so they harbored no ill feelings towards you. Nor did they treat you with any disrespect. However, what you did not anticipate was that, in such a scene, Viserys had leisurely retreated to indulge in a bath. Indeed, without an army from Drogo, he was rendered powerless. Realizing this, you understood that Viserys' life was nearing its end. After dismissing the maidens, you made your way alone to the palace where Viserys rested. As you entered, you heard voices within. One of the maidens serving Viserys possessed a familiar tone. Oh, it struck you. She was the same maiden who accompanied Daenerys during your last meeting. As you stepped into their conversation, you noticed that the maiden had slightly irked him. Upon seeing your composed demeanor, Viserys paused, momentarily taken aback, and just as he intended to act, you intervened, gesturing for the maiden to leave. Watching her flee in distress, your gaze turned to the serene figure of Viserys nestled within the bath. Observing your expression, he smiled gently. You approached the bath, gradually shedding your delicate gown, while Viserys regarded you with an amused countenance, mirroring the maiden's earlier position before him. Look at you, Viserys, you are on the verge of losing everything. What remains to be said? He drew you into his embrace, confessing that such a beautifully sculpted form was a first for him. He struggled to contain his insatiable desire as you placed your slender fingers against his chest, whispering, "Viserys, you belong to me now." The air was filled with the sound of ragged breaths as your lips met, the heat of Viserys' body increasing, causing your fair skin to flush. He feverishly grasped your hand, pulling you into his embrace, fervently kissing your neck, leaving marks that signified his claim. The tumultuous events of the night brought you a sense of bliss. You had lost track of time in the room, only aware that dusk was settling. You lay nestled in Viserys' arms, peacefully asleep. The day had been overcast, casting a shadow on your mood. As you turned to rise, you were startled back under the covers by a maiden who abruptly entered the tent. Viserys' eyes widened, and he noticed the uninvited maiden. Casting a glance at the startled girl beside him, his expression turned cold. "What do you want?" "Khaleesi requests your presence for dinner," the maiden replied. Viserys sprang up in disbelief. "What did you say?" "Khaleesi wishes for you to join her for dinner." Before she could finish, Viserys swiftly struck her down. "Viserys, what are you doing?" "She is merely following orders." With that, Viserys hastily donned his garments, the once cumbersome attire appearing surprisingly simple on him now. You too rose to smooth out his clothing before slipping on your own gown. "Why did you strike her?" "She was just obeying commands." Without regard, Viserys seized the handmaiden by her hair and dashed towards Daenerys' tent. The grim specter of Viserys' demise loomed. You sprinted forward, the absence of shoes forgotten. Yet you could not match Viserys' speed. The heated argument within startled you. What if Viserys harmed Daenerys' child? You burst inside, only to witness Viserys hurling objects at Daenerys. A mere retort from her led to him striking her down to the ground. Viserys cursed as he loomed over Daenerys. "Viserys, cease this at once. She carries a child," you implored. It was only when Daenerys managed to rise, defiant and resolute, that she declared, "I am Khaleesi of the Dothraki. I am the wife of the great Khal Drogo. I bear his son. Should you lay a hand upon me again, I shall sever both of your hands." This fierce defiance was something Viserys had never anticipated. He could not fathom that his sister would dare to confront him in such a manner, believing himself to be the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Yet here in Dothraki territory, such claims held no weight. You stepped forward, grasping Viserys to deter him from further folly. His face bore the marks of their recent scuffle, astonishment etched upon it. "Enough, Viserys." Daenerys' gaze met yours, brimming with disbelief, yet now it was also ablaze with fury. "Daenerys, do not be angry. Focus on your child. I shall take him away first." You pulled him outside, unleashing a torrent of admonitions upon him. "Consider your position. You stand alone. Khal Drogo's mood is fickle. Should you harm his wife and child, how could you ever expect his allegiance?" Upon returning to the chamber, a sense of unease enveloped your heart. You raised the wine glass to your lips, slowly pouring its contents onto the floor, forming a small puddle as you gazed into it, witnessing the unfolding events. Lo and behold, Lady Stark had abducted the imp, a grim turn that hastened the disintegration of House Stark. Let it unfold, you thought, as you watch these individuals engage in bloodshed. Your sole responsibility being to rescue the unfortunate souls, without concern for their ultimate fate. After all, finding them only indicated their proximity to death. That evening, Daenerys observed the dragon egg in her hands. Her elder brother possessed the blood of the dragon, while her second brother, Viserys, was nothing of the sort. She placed the egg upon the pyre, roasting it, and then slowly lifted it again. Her maid rushed over, grasping her hand to inspect it, only to be scalded by the egg's heat. Daenerys could hardly believe the sight before her. Her hand remained unscathed. The Dothraki tribe held a ritual that night. Daenerys, as Khaleesi, pregnant with child, was compelled to consume an entire raw horse heart in public. Viserys watched as the crowd cheered for Daenerys, singing to the child within her. With her last ounce of strength, she swallowed the final bite of the heart, and they shouted for Prince Rhaego, the child in her womb. All adored Daenerys. They had a strong and beloved queen. While Viserys finally grasped the truth, everyone cherished his sister, but no one had ever cherished him. He resolved to draw his sword, to sell all the dragon eggs in exchange for ships and an army. He believed he could never fulfill the responsibilities he had shouldered since the age of 5. For no one was willing to love him as they loved Daenerys. Ser Jorah Mormont intercepted him, halting Viserys from leaving. The spark in your gaze towards him had long since faded. His energy was nearly depleted, and soon he would perish. The blood of the dragon did not reside in him, nor in Daenerys, nor in her elder brother, Rhaegar. That night, you received 3 more pieces of news. The imp had escaped, Robert was teetering on the brink of death, and another tidbit from within your soul whispered of Joffrey. His web of lies had begun. The bloodthirsty energy he bore promised to be of assistance to you, should you draw near him. To celebrate this momentous day, the tribe held a grand feast that evening, undoubtedly influenced by the afternoon's events. He drank alone, drowning his sorrows, and then sought out Daenerys at the feast. Daenerys, where is my little sister? Where is she? I have come to attend her wedding feast. The wedding of that wretched girl. Upon the moment he beheld Drogo, an uncontrollable madness enveloped him, stripping away the remnants of his former self. In a frenzy, he unsheathed his sword, even though the Dothraki forbade him from carrying such a weapon. The blade was ominously directed towards Daenerys' abdomen. As Khal listened to the translation of the words spoken to Viserys, he consented to bestow upon Viserys a golden crown, one that would instill terror across the realm. They seized Viserys, and molten metal cascaded down upon him, corroding his flesh and consuming his mind. In his final moments, he pleaded for Daenerys to intervene. Yet his gaze fell upon yours, devoid of any semblance of pity. Instead, your eyes sparkled with a chilling mirth, reminiscent of a demon emerging from the depths of hell. In that fleeting instant, Viserys grasped an understanding, yet alas, he succumbed beneath the searing metal, his head unable to bear the weight of the golden crown. Collapsing under the strain, you stood outside the Dothraki encampment, observing the sky gradually clear, leading Viserys towards his demise. You witnessed Daenerys' transformation. Yet sorrow filled your heart as you perceived in Viserys' eyes the essence of Daenerys' lost child. After Robert's death, you felt no assurance of Daenerys' safety. Previously, King Robert must have perceived the child in her womb as the greatest threat, and now, it seemed that the bird had taken flight. Accompanying Daenerys and Jorah along the path, Viserys cast you an apologetic glance regarding his demise, but you merely shook your head. The son of the gods would not dwell on such matters. Viserys had brought his fate upon himself, and there was nothing you could do to prevent his actions. As you spoke, the group approached a street vendor, drawn by his calls. Jorah, who had been waiting aside, lingered a moment longer, overhearing their conversation, sensing something amiss. You stood by, intently observing the barrels of wine, convinced that the aroma wafting from them was decidedly wrong. You exchanged a knowing glance with Jorah. Daenerys should not meet her end here. Sensing your concern, Jorah approached, requesting to taste the wine recently acquired by Daenerys. The vendor appeared increasingly anxious, his movements slow, eyes fixated on the cup in Jorah's hand. Even Daenerys felt the unease. Jorah suggested that the vendor drink first, and upon witnessing his actions, Daenerys' intuition was confirmed. Ultimately, it was the vendor's actions that shattered the silence, nearly leading to Daenerys' assassination. You remained rooted in place, impassive as you observed the unfolding chaos. When Drogo and Khal learned of the assassination attempt on Daenerys, they rushed to the Great Hall, where Drogo pledged a gift to her. My son, riding upon the finest steed of the world, I shall present him with the Iron Throne, the very seat once occupied by his maternal grandfather. I, Drogo, shall undertake this endeavor. I will lead my Khalasar westward to the world's end, traversing the black salt waters upon a wooden horse, achieving what no Khal has accomplished before. I shall slay those clad in iron, dismantle their stone dwellings, and claim their women, seize their children to serve as slaves, and bring back their useless idols to V's Dothrak. I swear, I, Khal Drogo, son of Balan, swear before the mother of mountains. By the stars above, I pledge. The morale of the Dothraki army surged as they departed from the city of the Horse Lords, coinciding with the death of King Robert and the news of Ned's abduction. The Dothraki ravaged the lands, slaying men, capturing children, and violating women. Yet, the compassionate princess harbored no desire for any woman to suffer such indignities. When she sought to rescue the shepherdess, it was evident that Drogo favored Daenerys, and he wished to hear no more of it. Consequently, many began to believe that Drogo was unworthy of being a Khal. The Khal had been wounded in the battles, a mere scratch to the Dothraki. But Daenerys wished to tend to his wounds. However, upon meeting your gaze, it became apparent that Daenerys would face prolonged hardships ahead. With her father captured, Robb Stark of Winterfell was compelled to embark on a long march. You began to sense the essence of House Stark, gradually feeling a profound endurance and the weight of submission. Through your divine sight, you glimpsed Sansa's youthful visage and Arya, whose face bore an unyielding spirit. You smiled. Though you could no longer descend beside Eddard Stark, thoughts of his daughters and sons filled your mind. The strength of their blood would aid you, propelling you towards the pinnacle of power, enabling you to seize control of the world. Thus, you resolved to stand by their side, leading them ever onward towards their futures and destinies. In the tumult of King's Landing, beside Queen Cersei, it was confirmed that your father had committed treason, my dear. The queen regarded the beautiful maiden before her, and the arrival of the maester plunged Sansa into despair. With King Robert's body scarcely cold, Lord Eddard conspired to usurp the throne that rightfully belonged to Joffrey. Sansa could hardly fathom that her father would betray her, for no one could be more loyal than one's own father. His loyalty to King Robert would never compel him to seize Joffrey's throne. He understood how dearly she loved Joffrey, and he would never act against that love. Her innocent eyes turned back to Cersei, pleading, "Please, your grace. This must be a misunderstanding. Bring my father, he will explain. He is a friend of the king." Naive Sansa believed all of this to be merely a misunderstanding, still trusting the woman before her, unaware that this very woman was the architect of her father's demise. Cersei donned a facade of false compassion as she spoke to Sansa. "Good child, we know this matter does not involve you, but you are the daughter of a traitor. How could I allow you to marry my son?" Sansa was momentarily taken aback, and at that moment, the scholar beside her spoke once more. "A traitor's offspring should not become our king's queen. She may be a charming child now, your grace, but what will she become in 10 years? Can we be certain she will not betray us?" Sansa, in her innocence, believed that as long as she pledged her loyalty, she could still be Joffrey's wife. "No, I will not. I shall be a good wife to him. A queen like you, I promise, I will never betray." Peter Baelish stood behind Cersei and suddenly interjected, "This child is innocent, your grace. Grant her a chance to prove her loyalty." Cersei pondered briefly before extending a paper and quill toward Sansa. "Child, you must write a letter to Lady Catelyn and your elder brother. What is his name?" "Robb." Cersei sat up straight, regarding Sansa with a grave expression. "The news of your father's arrest will undoubtedly reach him soon, so it is prudent for you to convey the message. If you wish to assist your father, you must urge your brother to maintain peace in the realm. He must come to King's Landing and pledge his allegiance to Joffrey." Sansa hesitated for a moment. Summoning her brother to King's Landing was something that warranted her father's counsel. He could not simply decide this unilaterally. "May I see my father and speak with him?" However, as Sansa raised her eyes, she was met with Cersei's scrutinizing and disappointed gaze, and in that moment, she faltered. In truth, Sansa was a selfish individual, her self-interest manifesting in her willingness to employ any means necessary to obtain what she desired, though this was secondary to her parents. Consequently, after the passing of her parents, her approach bore no fruit for anyone. "You disappoint me greatly, child." Cersei's words struck Sansa deeply, for Cersei was convinced that Sansa harbored a profound love for her son Joffrey. This innocent affection for Joffrey became a sharp tool in Cersei's hands, enabling her to manipulate Sansa. "We have already informed you of your father's treason. Why would you still wish to meet a traitor?" "I only wish to know what will become of him." Sansa lingered in uncertainty, casting a question toward the woman before her. Cersei's reaction was swift. She deftly resolved the inquiry, compelling Sansa to retract her question, only to find herself compelled to ask again, ensnared by Cersei's manipulation. The strategy of psychological warfare, aimed at Sansa and her brother, Robb, gradually dismantled Sansa's inner hesitations and retreat. Cersei presented a quill directly before Sansa, who ultimately inscribed the queen's demands. Upon receiving this missive, Robb was engulfed in fury. His father had been imprisoned by Joffrey, and now the queen demanded his fealty. The incredulity of the situation spurred him to instruct the Maester of Winterfell to summon all bannermen. The Starks were poised to declare war on the Lannisters. A dense, ominous cloud drifted across the skies of Winterfell as ravens took flight, carrying the news of Robb's mobilization to the far reaches of the north. Meanwhile, Robb's mother swiftly learned of her son's intentions to wage war, confronting her sister with ire for not being informed sooner. The outcome of this confrontation revealed that the Vale of Arryn would not muster troops to support Robb. Far beyond the wall, Jon Snow encountered the first of the White Walkers, a harbinger of the impending future. This force, one he had never before encountered, had long since eradicated the living. Yet it was his very existence that heralded their resurgence. Despite not having faced them directly, he remained oblivious to the chilling power that silently approached, drawing ever closer. On the night of Robb's mobilization, turmoil arose. Lord Amber defied Robb's command, resulting in the loss of 2 fingers to Robb's dire wolf. A consequence of drawing his sword before his sworn lord. Under the cover of darkness, Robb chose to rise against the Lannisters, sensing the palpable surge of righteous fury intensifying. He had long cultivated his strength, manifesting a doppelganger that shared his power and memories. A reflection of himself destined to join Robb Stark in the southward campaign against the Lannisters, aiding him in harnessing the energies of the earth and ruling over all. Robb's mother departed the Vale of Arryn to seek her son, as snow began to fall in this still summer land, a phenomenon known as summer snow. Catelyn gazed upon the unfolding scene, marveling at how Robb had brought the climate of the north to this place. Born in the north, she observed the stark contrast of the weather compared to the south. Here, everyone donned thick garments for warmth, while she, newly arrived, was clad only in a slender beige long-sleeve dress and matching trousers, her feet encased in knee-high fur boots that, despite their name, offered little insulation. As she surveyed her surroundings, taking in the vast expanse of Beijing, she felt a profound joy swelling within her upon witnessing the Northern Army. Gradually, she made her way towards them, where they had captured a Lannister scout. At that moment, it was Robb's courage and strategy that caught her attention. He approached the scout and conveyed to Duke Tywin that winter had arrived, with 20,000 northern soldiers advancing southward, challenging him to reveal whether he could truly muster gold. However, Robb's decision incited discontent among his vassals, who could scarcely believe that this young lad would allow someone privy to their military strength to escape. One vassal stepped forward, chastising Robb, calling him a mere boy. Yet, Robb appeared unfazed by their ire. His serious demeanor and resolute expression suggested he had a contingency plan in place. Robb wished to cross the Trident, but the immediate obstacle was that the Frey family controlled the bridge. Reluctantly, his mother entered negotiations with the Freys. Ultimately, if Robb desired to cross the river and secure the Frey forces, he would have to agree to make their son his squire, elevating him to count in due time, while Arya would need to marry his son, Walder. Furthermore, after the war, one of their daughters would be chosen as Robb's bride. Though the prospects of these daughters were far from appealing, as she approached the tent, she stumbled upon a tense standoff. An apologetic attendant rushed in behind her, expressing regret and promising to expel the woman immediately. Upon meeting her gaze, everyone froze in shock. She shook off the attendant's hand and proclaimed loudly, "I am Gladys Michel, a descendant of the divine." At the moment those words departed your lips, a myriad of expressions manifested before you, predominantly a profound respect intertwined with disbelief. They had never fathomed that the divine would heed their fervent prayers, dispatching a scion of the gods to aid them in their quest for victory in this war. Yet, in truth, your intentions extended far beyond such aspirations. Your gaze swept across the assembly, cold as ice, but when it alighted upon Robb, it transformed into something akin to joy, an unmasked desire for the prey before you. Robb Stark, Daenerys Targaryen, and Drogo had stumbled through this journey, with Drogo appearing exceedingly frail, teetering on the brink of consciousness. You advanced slowly, witnessing the anxious countenance of Daenerys. At the sight of Drogo, the truth became evident. He would not survive the night. Perhaps sooner, perhaps later. You crouched down, gently patting Daenerys on the back, whispering reassurances that he was merely fatigued, in need of rest, that the witch would restore him. Daenerys's profound affection for Drogo is known to all, but what of the present moment? Once the life of Drogon is extinguished, Dany shall find herself unable to endure in this realm. At that moment, she kneels before you, pleading, "Gladys, I implore you, save him, rescue him." She yearns for your intervention to preserve Drogon's existence, hoping you can return her husband to her alive. Yet, you find yourself powerless. To save Drogon would require the expenditure of your divine energy, which in turn would signify a profound alteration of the continent's very laws. Such a disruption is intolerable to the natural order, compelling you to refuse her. I cannot save him, for that would mean defying the principles of nature. As you observe Dany's once hopeful visage gradually dimming, transforming into despair, a flicker of determination ignites within her, suggesting a resolution that seems unsettling. Dany resolves to invoke the taboo in exchange for Drogon's continued existence. The revelation of this decision startles you. The blood curse must have been divulged to her by the witch. It is evident that Dany has yet to grasp the true implications of the blood curse, a life for a life. This naivety underscores her innocence. And as you witness the tendrils of dark smoke enveloping the witch, you comprehend that Drogon's time is drawing near. In that instant, everything shifts. As the blood curse commences, Dany experiences discomfort in her womb. After enduring the jostling from the Blood Alliance's guardians, she prepares to give birth. Initially, Dany envisioned her son as the new cows, believing that upon awakening, she would behold her child. Alas, fate does not align with her desires. Before succumbing to unconsciousness, Dany gazes at you, longing for words of solace. You indeed speak, and thus far, your decision has etched itself as an indelible scar upon your being. In her astonished eyes, you rise with a cold smirk and stride toward the tent's exit, casting a final glance at Dany. You will lose them. Upon hearing your words, Dany faints. In the early skirmish, victory was claimed with the death of Ed. That evening, you extended the first olive branch to Robb. Having already disclosed your military strength, you plan to dispatch 2,000 troops to confront Tywin, while reallocating a portion of the remaining forces. You fix your gaze upon Robb as he prepares to confront the Kingslayer, Jaime Lannister. I shall chant for you here, ensuring your triumphant return with him. Securing this minor victory, Robb's expression betrays hesitation. This marks his inaugural venture into battle. Should he indeed initiate this small conflict, a victory would bolster his troops' morale. But what of defeat? His decision to release that squire stemmed from personal motives, yet capturing the Kingslayer was not his primary objective. What holds you back? Do you doubt my divine power? Robb stared into your scarlet eyes, momentarily taken aback, as an ambition began to unfurl within him. He abruptly turned to you, and you observed his expression with satisfaction, convinced that Robb had now placed his complete trust in you. Following your counsel, Robb led his army during the day, charging towards the direction of the regicide. You sat astride your horse, positioned beside his mother, Lady Catelyn, who anxiously watched you and occasionally cast her gaze towards the distant woods. Her son was just beyond that thicket, engaged in battle with the Lannister forces. The total number of troops participating in Tywin's campaign did not exceed 2,000, rendering it a stalemate for both sides. You continuously murmured incantations, certain that today, Jaime Lannister would arrive here, captured by Robb Stark. The evidence revealed that everything was under your dominion. A chorus of neighing erupted as noble steeds galloped through the underbrush. And you beheld Robb's face, radiant with pride. Catelyn exhaled in relief and directed a grateful glance towards you, even as you kept your eyes closed in chant. Subsequently turning to look at your son, Robb nodded to his mother and then thrust Jaime Lannister before her. Jaime was bloodied, having just endured a fierce confrontation with Robb. But it was evident that Robb had gained the upper hand, untouched by a single drop of blood. With Jaime Lannister captured, morale surged, and in that moment, Robb felt a sense of victory unlike any he had previously known. He turned to you, just as you opened your eyes, the golden light fading from your gaze. He beheld your eyes, which were imbued with frost, a striking crimson hue. Seated within the tent, you sensed a power dissipating across the continent. You felt the death of Eddard Stark, his strength gradually ascending. Initially, you believed this formidable force would vanish from the world, yet upon seeing the sun, your eyes widened in realization. The power swiftly descended, landing upon the unconscious Sansa. Perhaps this power did not belong to you, but in that moment, your desire to seize it surged. You smiled, resolving to conjure a doppelganger to reach Sansa. Not merely for the potent force, but also for the mightier presence of Joffrey beside her. His bloodthirsty essence brought you unparalleled delight. You witnessed Joffrey coercing Sansa to gaze upon her father's severed head, feeling Eddard's essence coursing within her, sensing her burgeoning defiance. You observed her attempt to push Joffrey from the platform for the first time. Though she ultimately failed now, Sansa's transformation solidified your resolve to obtain this power. Thus, you decided to conjure another doppelganger. Seize it. Let vengeance reign. All the energy of these emotions would be your sustenance, the key to your dominion over this world. That was the wellspring of your divine might. You made your way to Robb's tent, only to find it empty. The entire camp was enveloped in an eerie silence. It was evident that they had learned of Eddard Stark's demise. All were in mourning for Eddard, a noble lord who commanded the respect of his vassals. Yet met such a tragic fate. As you caught sight of Catelyn emerging from the woods, you pursued her, soon discovering Robb in an embrace with his mother. In that moment, you witnessed his vulnerability and understood that he had received the news of his father's murder. Lady Catelyn acknowledged your presence with a nod. For as the chosen one, she believed you could offer solace to her son, allowing you to converse with Robb in private. In the tumult of chaos, Daenerys awakened, her eyes meeting the anxious expression of Mormont and your own, as you cast a spell to restore her vitality. She perceived the golden light emanating from your hands. And in that instant, she comprehended that you were not devoid of divine power. Rather, you had chosen not to intervene for her brother Viserys or rescue her husband Drogo. You, weakened, interrupted her, fixing your gaze upon Daenerys. She paused, your eyes shimmering with golden light, which faded to reveal their original crimson hue, devoid of any emotion. I could not save Drogo, Khal, but I have done my utmost to protect your child. Upon the mention of her son, Daenerys grew frantic. Where's my child? Where's Drogo? With that, she turned to Mormont, who bore a troubled expression, but the sorceress approached slowly. Your son is a demon, cursed upon entering this world. Adorned with tiny wings. Upon contact with his skin, decay ensues, his flesh infested with maggots. She smiled as she revealed this grim truth to Daenerys. I warned you about the blood curse. In disbelief, Daenerys turned to you, only to find you nodding in affirmation. Then how did you manage to protect my child? You unfurled your tightly clenched right hand, radiating brilliance, as a tiny infant, no larger than a walnut, began to grow, eventually transforming into a baby slightly smaller than the usual size. With divine power, I fashioned a body for him, yet it could not endure for long. You then turned your gaze towards Dany's dragon egg. He required a symbiotic entity to survive, or else he would perish. The witch regarded you with an icy demeanor. She had initially doubted your divinity, yet now she was compelled to believe. Regardless, Zargo Ko was already dead, and she considered her vendetta avenged. A cold laugh escaped her lips. You heard this mocking sound and turned to look at her. Ah yes, and you. The next moment she was suspended in the air, her neck gripped by your hand, gasping for breath. Do you know, Dany has been deceiving you from the very start, exploiting you? The Dothraki burned her temple. And before you rescued her, she had already been violated by 2 Dothraki soldiers. She did not save you in gratitude. Instead, she brought harm to your husband. Dany's eyes flickered with shifting colors, momentarily unable to absorb the truth. She caught the child you offered her. The pitiful little one still shimmered with luminescence. Yet his adorable face showed no signs of breathing. He requires a symbiont, Dany. Am I not sufficient? Of course, he needs a powerful symbiont. As the witch began to lose her breath, you cast her aside and instructed her to see Zargo. Dany, gazing at her son, recalled the name she had given him, Rhaego. Emerging from the tent, Dany cradled Rhaego, only to find that all the Khalasars had departed, leaving but a few to accompany her. Dany felt her heart shatter as she stepped forward towards Zargo, who sat on the cliff's edge, his gaze fixed upon the distant sun. My sun and stars. Dany knelt before Zargo, clutching her child, yet regrettably, he remained motionless, devoid of any reaction or expression. When will he recover? The witch, dragged forth, chuckled softly. When the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas dry up and mountains are blown away like withered leaves. Dany comprehended fully. She was an outsider, foolishly believing she could alter Zargo's fate. The cost of her aspirations was her son and Zargo himself. With newfound resolve in her eyes, she rose and solemnly placed Rhaego into your hands. As you felt the lifelessness of Rhaego, you sensed the bitterness within Dany's heart. Here, he shall find greater comfort? You nodded, and Daenerys turned her gaze towards the witch. Having made a monumental decision, she would grant Drogo a funeral pyre. The highest honor among the Dothraki is cremation, and as the king of the Dothraki, Drogo must depart this world in such a manner. Upon returning to her chamber, Daenerys wrestled with her emotions before gently covering Drogo's face with a pillow. He offered no resistance, merely convulsing in the absence of oxygen. Yet, in that moment, he slipped away from life. At the pyre, Daenerys beheld Drogo's lifeless form, her face etched with sorrow. She glanced at you, standing at the foot of the platform, alongside the bound witch, who was secured by the Blood Riders. Though she continued to laugh maniacally, Daenerys tenderly caressed 3 dragon eggs, placing them carefully beside Drogo. She ignited the pyre, flames swiftly consuming the wood, illuminating the sky in a brilliant blaze. The witch was engulfed by the fire, thrashing in desperation. her agonized screams echoing through the air, while Daenerys stood motionless, a statue of resolve. In a state of worry, Ser Jorah Mormont looked towards you, only to find you unmoving. He rose, intent on rushing forward, but you halted him, turning your head to indicate the infant Rego cradled in your arms. Miraculously, the little one began to breathe. Mormont, astonished, glanced towards the inferno, yet Daenerys' figure had vanished from sight. Time flowed swiftly, and as the flames began to subside, nearly everyone awoke simultaneously, including Mormont. He sat up, discovering you still standing there, adorned in a golden gown, the sunlight accentuating your divine essence. Everyone followed your gaze. And amidst the remnants left by the fire, a silver-haired figure was seated, slowly raising her head. The more she straightened, the deeper the curve of your smile became. Welcome back, Daenerys Targaryen, Mother of Dragons. All present witnessed the 3 young dragons adorning Daenerys, hatching in her embrace on a day when dragons had been extinct for centuries. The assembly bowed in reverence, proclaiming, Mother of Dragons. In King's Landing, a new beginning awaited Sansa as the tournament commenced. Warriors donned their armor for combat, while Sansa and Joffrey observed from the elevated platform. As the Hound dispatched his opponent over the walls, Joffrey cheered, exclaiming, Well done, good dog. He turned to Sansa, inquiring, What do you think of the fight? Well done, she echoed, though her earlier radiance had faded, overshadowed by the memory of her father's demise. Yes, Your Grace, she replied, then turned away, refusing to meet Joffrey's gaze. He felt slighted, but chose not to incite her anger. Who's next? He shouted towards the arena. Rafford, the Red Knight. Sir Dantos, a free rider in the service of Lord Baelish, called out the name of Sir Dantos, yet no one emerged from the shadows. He shouted again, only to hear a slurred response. I'm coming. Dragging his battered armor and corpulent frame, it was evident to all that he had indulged in drink. Have you been drinking? Joffrey inquired. Yes, Your Grace, not excessively, merely 2 cups. Only 2 cups? That is indeed modest, Joffrey replied, his temper unusually mild. Though who could predict his next caprice? Please, another cup. Joffrey gestured towards the table laden with red wine, signaling for the knight to be refilled. Are you serious, Your Grace? The knight hesitated, while Sansa cast a glance at Joffrey, as if foreseeing the imminent turn of events. Of course, to celebrate my name day. Have as many as you desire. The knight appeared not to grasp the implication, exclaiming, It is a great honor, Your Grace. He stepped forward. Ser Meryn, assist Sir Dantos in celebrating my name day. Fill his belly. The poor knight nodded, utterly oblivious to the meaning of fill. He was seized by 2 towering knights, who proceeded to pour an entire barrel of wine down his throat. You can't, Sansa instinctively uttered, immediately drawing Joffrey's attention. What did you say? Realizing her misstep, Sansa forced herself to compose, turning to Joffrey. You mean I cannot say such things? I merely believe that killing on your name day would invite misfortune. Her voice quivered slightly, and such superstitions seemed nonsensical to Joffrey. Hearing her words, Sansa sighed in relief. At least he did not pursue her defiance. This girl speaks wisely. It is said that a name day sows seeds that bear fruit throughout the year, the Hound explained, evidently finding some merit in it for Joffrey. Release him. I shall kill him tomorrow, the imbecile commanded. The servant immediately let go of Dantos, who, upon liberation, violently expelled the wine that had already settled in his stomach, esophagus, and trachea. Sansa quickly seized the moment. Yes, he is a fool, that much is apparent. He is more suited to being a jester than a knight. This fool is not worthy of a clean demise. Sansa clearly understood Joffrey's preferences, and her words were well received. Did you hear what the lady said, Sir Dantos? From this day forth, you shall be my new jester. Thank you, Your Grace. Sir Dantos swayed precariously. And you, my lady, I am grateful to you. The farce had barely concluded when a voice rang out. My dear nephew. As the sound subsided, a mischievous imp emerged from behind, exclaiming, We have scoured the battlefield in search of you, yet Joffrey remains elusive. This absurdity prompted Joffrey to retort, I have been here all along, truly excelling in the governance of the realm. A statement laced with sarcasm reached Joffrey's ears, yet Tyrion paid him no heed. Instead, he turned his attention to his dear niece and nephew, engaging in cheerful conversation with them. We heard you had perished, Joffrey interjected inopportunely. I am delighted you are alive. The young girl quickly replied, a moment of joy illuminating her face. I too am pleased, dear child. Death would be exceedingly dull, particularly now when the world is so vibrant. Miss, I extend my condolences for your misfortunes, he remarked, directing his words towards Sansa. Her misfortunes? Joffrey scoffed, swiftly pulling the conversation back. His father is a well-known traitor. However, ultimately, her father, dear father, has recently passed away, which should be understood. Yet, Joffrey remained indifferent as he glanced at Sansa, who, reluctantly, spoke again. My father is a traitor, as are my mother and brother. I am utterly devoted to Joffrey. Sansa's demeanor left him somewhat bewildered. Without a doubt, happy name day, Your Grace, he said before departing from the scene. The long summer is coming to its conclusion, and winter is on the horizon. Tyrion has now assumed the role of Hand of the King. He attended the small council to report to Cersei on the state of the war. They once held 3 Starks in their grasp, but now only one remains. Far away in the north, Bran has taken on the mantle of Lord of Winterfell during his brother's absence, overseeing the affairs of the north and Winterfell. A rather tedious task that he must now undertake. The direwolves roam through the sacred woods of the north, the sky split by a streak of crimson light. Bran dreamt that he was the reflection in the water scene within those sacred woods, the same direwolf he raised, still gazing at the red star in the heavens. The appearance of the red comet can signify but one thing: dragons. Despite the reluctance of many to admit it, dragons have indeed returned. Daenerys and her few remaining Khalasar traversed the vast desert, clearly suffering from a severe lack of water and food. Even her horse has collapsed, once a gift from Drogo, now abandoned. Famine has brought Daenerys to the brink of surrender. In her arms, she cradles Rhaego, who has not tasted a drop of milk since he began to breathe. He too succumbs to the hunger of the desert, covered in dust. In stark contrast stands you, unblemished by dirt, still quite fresh, unlike Daenerys and her companions, who are disheveled. Your long hair flows freely, showing no signs of dehydration. Now is the time for you to make a choice. Daenerys, you remind her. You cannot make decisions for her, for you must aid her growth. If you decide for her, she will come to depend on you, and she cannot rely on you for eternity. My blood of my blood, you hint, prompting Daenerys to rise and call upon her blood riders, Ricardo, Ago, and Kovaro. Ride the remaining horses. You head east, you head southeast, you head northeast. Daenerys glanced at you, and you nodded, tacitly approving her command. What are we searching for? She inquired. The city of Qarth, regardless of whether it is inhabited, as well as caravans and travelers, rivers, lakes, and the sea. How far is it to the Red Wasteland, and what lies beyond? Daenerys conversed fluently in the Dothraki tongue, and you felt a swell of pride. As long as Daenerys overcomes these challenges, she will inevitably transform, advancing towards her rightful victory, carrying everything with her as she strides into your shared future. Lock Hollow called out to the bloodbound knight who had been following her. You are my last hope, my blood of blood. I shall not let you down. They exchanged smiles, their eyes brimming with confidence and expectation, subtly transforming their relationship from that of master and servant to something akin to family. You smiled gently, gazing at the slumbering Rhaego in your arms. In truth, caring for a child is far more laborious than one might imagine. In a distant land by the sea, the Red Sorceress was orchestrating the ritual of the Light King. Having chosen Balasian and now urging them to forsake the 7 gods revered by their ancestors in favor of worshipping the Light King, thereby establishing her own realm and declaring herself queen. A warrior would draw his sword from the flames. Stannis Baratheon unhesitatingly believed the Red Sorceress's words. He stepped forward and grasped the sword from the fire. The Red Sorceress was pleased, convinced she had found her prince, that she had chosen wisely. Yet, whether this would truly result in a victorious war remained uncertain. The Witch Sorceress and the Red Sorceress traversed the great roads of Westeros, always encountering energies that clashed with their own. However, their feeble forces could not shake your position nor contend with your power, thus you remained unafraid. The only sensation you could perceive came from the north, an icy force from beyond the wall, a power that genuinely felt threatening. For you had never before encountered such strength. Come forth, all of you who fears. As night enveloped the land, with the moon reigning overhead, you and Robb wandered through the camp, eventually approaching the wooden cage that held Jaime Lannister, the king in the north. Jaime displayed no fear towards Robb, viewing him as merely a child. Their conversation revealed Robb's keen intellect. He called Robb boy, observing his displeasure with a hint of malice, even directing a disparaging remark towards you, who stood by. Is this your woman? Wow, she is truly beautiful. I would wager that neither King's Landing nor the North possesses a maiden who can rival her. Where do you hail from, dear lady? You let out a derisive snort, offering no reply to Jaime's words. He continued to smile, until a low growl from a dire wolf pierced the air. Alarmed, he turned to find the massive creature before him, the Kingslayer. Is it you who seeks humiliation? Robb asked, unperturbed and unfazed, merely smiling as he spoke in a soft, yet formidable tone. It is a boy who has bested you, a boy who has captured you. Perhaps this boy may even bring about your demise. You listened to Robb's cadence, laughter escaping your lips, the mockery in your eyes unmasked. Standing beside Robb, you resembled messengers from the depths of hell, demons dispatched by Satan. That smile, you wager, would forever haunt Jaime Lannister's memory. As the dire wolf circled the cage and approached him, Jaime's tension was palpable. You broke the silence first, stating that Stannis Baratheon had penned letters to all the nobles of Westeros, declaring that Joffrey Baratheon was neither a legitimate king nor of royal blood. You slowly approached him, squatting before him with one hand cradling your cheek, amusement dancing in your gaze. He is your bastard son, you asserted. Jaime, without a moment's thought, retorted. If that were true, Stannis could rightfully claim the throne. How advantageous that would be for him. Robb interrupted, stroking the dire wolf beside him as he spoke thoughtfully. My father uncovered the truth, hence your decision to execute him. The dire wolf, seemingly receiving an unspoken command, suddenly tensed, panting with its tongue out. When Ned Stark was executed, I was already your captive, Jaime hastily began to explain, but Robb cut him off once more. Your son killed him, concealing your father-son relationship from the world, while you cast my brother from the tower simply because he witnessed your incest with the queen. Robb's demeanor shifted, his actions causing the dire wolf to tense once again, its tongue retracting as it prepared to attack. Jaime, of course, noticed this and inquired, do you have evidence? Or do you wish to be a gossiping harpy? You, who had previously kept your head lowered, spoke with a chilling tone, your expression devoid of warmth. Provocation will not work, Kingslayer. We have already dispatched one of your cousins southward to deliver my terms for a truce to King's Landing. Jaime responded, did you truly believe my father would negotiate with you? You truly misunderstand him, and indeed, Robert has ceased any further trivial discourse with him. However, he shall begin to comprehend my essence. 3 minor victories do not suffice to claim dominion. They are certainly preferable to 3 defeats. Robert turned away, and the ice wolf lunged towards Jaime, who, in his fear, shut his eyes tightly. Yet, the creature merely bared its fangs and growled a couple of times before departing. Cersei, in her madness, elicited a chuckle from Jaime as he opened his eyes and met your gaze. He had never encountered such eyes, prompting a fleeting moment of self-doubt. My name is Gladys Michel, he responded, mirroring the reaction of most upon hearing your surname. I am a descendant of the gods worshipped by your family, hailing from an even older lineage of deities. Jaime sighed. With the inclusion of a godling, I fear the difficulty of our assault will escalate exponentially. You smiled lightly. There is no need for concern. The Kingslayer must understand that war is the optimal means of reshaping the world. I desire war, and thus shall not excessively assist either side. Gradually, you rose, casting a disdainful glance down upon him. Should any of you bring me displeasure, or arrogantly assume that all is within your grasp, I shall have no choice. You leisurely examined your nails, then glanced back at the departing Robert. I do not believe that the ultimate king of Westeros will be Robert, you stated, redirecting your gaze to Jaime's eyes. I see that your fate is not yet sealed. You shall live and depart, and soon. Jaime smiled in relief. So, noble deity, when do you foresee my demise? Your unwavering gaze pierced into Jaime's eyes, silent, yet scrutinizing. As the haze behind those eyes became clearer, you smiled. It appears your future is destined to be intriguing. You did not intend to reveal the truth, turning on your heel to leave, but paused at the cage door to cast him one last smile. When you encounter your sister, do remind her that she is not the ultimate victor. With that, you departed hastily, leaving Jaime to ponder your words in solitude. In King's Landing, Tyrion brought back a courtesan he had encountered in the military camp, unable to take her to the palace or his own castle, thus settling her in a room in King's Landing, one that once belonged to Ned Stark. Cersei sought out Peter Baelish, hoping for his assistance. Lord Baelish, Cersei said as she glided down the corridor, her long skirts trailing behind her. I hope you can do me a favor. Of course, I am at your service. He replied. Cersei waved her hand dismissively. Ned Stark's youngest daughter, Arya, seems to have vanished. They conversed as they walked. If she has escaped King's Landing, she should be heading to Winterfell. Yet, my allies in the north have reported nothing, which strikes me as peculiar. If we were to negotiate with House Stark, this girl would possess considerable value. If found, you are aware that the Lannisters always repay their debts. Her intentions were crystal clear. She wished to locate Arya and capture her to gain leverage over the Stark family. You might inquire with Varys. He could provide the answers you seek. As for whether you choose to believe him, I have always been skeptical of eunuchs. Who knows what desires they harbor? Peter Baelish's demeanor was unmistakable. He wished to remain uninvolved in the matters concerning Arya. After all, it was Eddard Stark's misplaced trust in him that led him into a trap, and he no longer desired to entangle himself in the affairs of House Stark. Cersei scoffed softly, then reached out to touch the silver mockingbird emblem adorning Baelish's attire. You chose this sigil, did you not? It suits you well, a self-reliant individual with many songs to sing. I am pleased you appreciate it. Some are fortunate enough to be born with a golden key, while others must toil for their success, he replied. Cersei nodded, half smiling, though this did not imply her agreement with his sentiment. I once heard a song about a boy from humble beginnings who found a way into a prestigious family. She continued. Baelish merely smiled at this remark, choosing silence. The boy fell in love with the eldest daughter of that family, but unfortunately, she was already devoted to another. The implication was clear. She referred to the very person before her, an Eddard Stark's wife, Catelyn Tully. Baelish chuckled wryly, aware of the awkwardness that could arise when young men and women shared the same roof. I have heard tales of siblings who develop affections for one another, he mused. One could not deny the audacity of Littlefinger, daring to confront Cersei, as this matter once again involved the incestuous relationship between Cersei and Jaime Lannister, along with their offspring. Joffrey Baratheon, a most ironic predicament. When such affections became public knowledge, the situation could become truly uncomfortable. Cersei's expression darkened, her smile vanished, replaced by a frigid demeanor, particularly within the context of noble families. Yet, these houses often overlooked a simple truth. He paused, his gaze fixed intently on Cersei's face, only to be met with a demand for elucidation. Knowledge is power, she declared, and when she did not receive the desired answer, irritation flared within her. She commanded the knight at her side to seize him and slit his throat. Just as the blade pressed against Baelish's neck, Cersei interjected, "Stand down." With a smile that hinted at madness, she continued, "I have changed my mind. Release him. Step back 3 paces. Turn around and close your eyes." Cersei advanced slowly, positioning herself before the terrified Baelish. "Power is strength. Kindly set aside the gold and the courtesans for the time being, and assist me in locating the youngest daughter of House Stark." Her eyes held a threatening glimmer, and Baelish responded with gratitude, though he remained apprehensive as she turned on her heel and departed. "In Robb's camp, you are Ser Eden Lannister, are you not?" "Indeed, your majesty, under the following conditions. I shall negotiate peace with your cousin." Seated beside Robb, one could observe his adeptness in dealings with the Lannisters. Robb was remarkably astute, handling these negotiations with ease and possessing unique insights into warfare. On the first day of battle, in his inaugural conflict, he had personally sent 2,000 souls to their doom. "You appreciate such formidable energy," Robb stated calmly, addressing the Lannister representatives. "First, you must release my 2 sisters. Secondly, the immediate return of my father's remains is imperative, allowing him to rest eternally alongside his siblings in the tombs of Winterfell. The bodies of his loyal guardians must also be returned, enabling their kin to lay them to rest and commemorate them." The old lord seated beside Robb listened intently to his requests. Perhaps the 3 minor victories had indeed instilled a profound transformation in their perception of Robb Stark. Just as the knight facing the king was about to express his thoughts, Robb interjected. Thirdly, he paused, yet his entire demeanor radiated an unwavering and fearsome resolve. "Joffrey and the regent must relinquish their claim over the north. From this moment forth, the north shall stand as a free and independent kingdom." This demand rendered the knight before him utterly speechless, momentarily at a loss for words, merely gazing at Robb in astonishment. Long live the king in the north. Soon, the vassals surrounding him beamed with relief, excitement, and reverence as they chanted, "Long live the king in the north. Joffrey and his army are forbidden from stepping foot into the north. Should he disregard this command, he shall meet the same fate as my father. Though I require no servant's hand to execute him." The servant, incredulous, dared to retort, "Your grace, these." Robb rose, cutting him off. "These are my conditions. Should the regent and her son consent, I shall grant them peace. Should they refuse, I shall march southward, leaving Lannisters strewn across the ground." "Joffrey, the king bears the name Baratheon, does he not?" His pause was laden with pressure, compelling all present to transform their memories of the lad from Winterfell into the image of Robb Stark of House Stark, and the king in the north, Robb Stark. A slight chuckle escaped him, amusement dancing in his eyes as he regarded the servant before him. "At dawn, you shall depart, Ser Edmure. This meeting is adjourned." All the lords withdrew, including Theon, who shared a close bond with him. He had intended to speak, but upon realizing Robb's gaze upon him, he complied. "I have matters to discuss with his grace. You may leave first." Theon, aware of his status as a hostage, said nothing further and exited. "The Lannisters will not acquiesce to your demands. You realize this, do you not?" "I am aware," Robb replied, leaning back in his chair, adorned in a heavy black cloak that contrasted with his fair complexion, reminiscent of a plum blossom in the winter. Theon had previously informed me that he could persuade his father to grant me the fleet and to assault King's Landing. Therefore, Robb, Greyjoy is not a reliable ally. At least you ought to know this. His only surviving son has now become a hostage of House Stark. What makes you think he would assist you? Even if Theon were to return, have you not contemplated the potential outcomes? You rose and approached him. We must prepare for the worst, dear one. But I require his fleet. It is said that there are countless rats in the sewers of King's Landing. Shall we also form an alliance with them? It is rumored that the last of the Targaryen bloodline has perished, yet here I stand, very much alive. You and Robb locked eyes, the tension palpable. As you perceived the urgency of vengeance within his gaze, yet you understood that this matter could not be rushed. Greyjoy is not to be trusted. After Robb spoke, you turned away, preparing to exit the tent. Upon reaching the entrance, you paused, acutely aware that Robb required experience. Yet, if you returned Theon, you understood that no favorable outcome would ensue. Nonetheless, you could not hinder him. If this was his desire, then let him pursue it. In that fleeting moment, Robb lifted his head, his eyes reflecting an intense yearning and disbelief, filled with a mixture of confusion and excitement. The allure of the Greyjoy fleet was indeed enticing. Perhaps it was worth exploring. Your gaze, as you looked back, revealed a hint of indulgence, yet deep within, you felt an inescapable resignation. Regardless of the circumstances, the Stark lineage was your sustenance, and the fervent fire that burned within their hearts was what you sought. Unlike the Targaryens, exemplified by Viserys, whose bloodline, though pure, was impoverished due to prolonged unpopularity, rendering it devoid of any valuable sustenance. Ultimately, he was unfit to reign and would only cause trouble for Daenerys. Thus, he must perish. But what of Robb? For the first time, you felt a flicker of compassion for another's life, perhaps because you recognized his significance to you. A potential ally in claiming territory. What would happen if he were to die? You had not contemplated your subsequent strategies, yet your desire to see Robb live was genuine. Your heart ached suddenly, and you fled in a panic. Robb watched your retreating figure, silently resolving to try, no matter the cost. As for you, you escaped back to your own tent. The moment you stepped inside, you pulled down the tent flap, only to collapse onto the ground, overwhelmed by pain. This was your singular sensation. This was the law of existence. Though you were a deity, embodying the very laws of this world, divine order reigned. If you were to wield your abilities to safeguard those destined for demise, you would inevitably face the consequences of your actions. Every person possesses vulnerabilities. Every individual has their Achilles heel. Even someone as formidable as you. If you could not prevent Robb from stepping through the gates of hell, then let those who endangered him taste eternal suffering. In the first episode of the second season, you will soon learn of Robb's scheme. He cannot exchange the lives of his two sisters for a king's slayer, yet he can seek aid through alliances. Thus, Robb intends to send his mother to the Stormlands to negotiate with Renly Baratheon, aiming to garner an army of 100,000 to besiege King's Landing. At the moment this news reaches you, you find yourself seated in your chamber, your hand repeatedly pressing against your heart, which continues to throb with a dull ache. However, your mind is not troubled by Robb's predicament. Rather, you sense the burgeoning power from the south, still emanating from Joffrey. The time has come, with your current divine prowess. You could easily manifest a duplicate to accompany you to Joffrey's side, that bloodthirsty, frenzied, and obsessive figure who serves as one of your sources of energy. You require him. Yet, at present, you are situated beside Daenerys and Robb. To approach Joffrey now, one across the ocean, one in the north, and one in the south, would create a separation with no intersection. The optimal choice is clear. Without hesitation, you opt to gather your strength for a duplicate. In King's Landing, Joffrey seeks to eradicate all remnants of House Targaryen from the castle. However, his negligence towards the military has incited his mother's ire. In the face of such circumstances, Joffrey maintains an attitude of indifference. He even resorts to humiliating his mother, proclaiming, "I have heard revolting rumors, mother. I wish to know how many bastards father left behind after he grew weary of you." Before he can finish, Cersei's slap lands sharply upon his face, ringing clear and echoing with disbelief. This is her most cherished son, yet for the first time, she strikes him. Your previous actions warrant a death sentence. Joffrey's nonchalant comment leaves Cersei in shock. She cannot fathom that her son could be so cold-blooded as to impose a death sentence upon his own mother. Unable to direct her anger towards Joffrey, she places the blame squarely on those bastards. From that moment on, she erupts in fury, ordering the immediate execution of all bastards left by her husband, Robert Baratheon. From that day forth, the cries of children and the desperate wails of their mothers resound through King's Landing. Infants in cradles and children already grown are mercilessly slain. This atrocity incites widespread outrage among the populace, who curse the cruel marauders in the streets, as the wicked hand of fate reaches for Arya, a tall boy making his way along King's Road towards the Night's Watch. A cold wind stirs, and the dead rise. The river flows gently, and the birds and beasts sing in the mountains. On her journey to the wall, Arya quietly picks up a fallen branch to serve as a tool for cooking and warmth that night. As she approaches the group, she is called to halt. "Hey, you there!" A young lad, parched with thirst, perhaps a boy could benefit from additional companionship, finds himself imprisoned within a cage, his shoulder-length hair framing a remarkably handsome visage, albeit marred by the dirt that conceals it. Yet, Arya exhibits no sign of trepidation as she approaches, clutching a bundle of firewood. "I have friends," she asserts. Meanwhile, another man in the vehicle pounds on the iron bars of the cage, threatening, "Bring us a drink, or I shall flay you alive." The individual has no choice in his companions, and these two lack any semblance of civility. One must seek forgiveness amidst the gentlemanly tones that permeate the air, dispelling the curses of the other two. Arya gazes at the blue-eyed man before her, who stands in stark contrast to the two rotund ruffians. He possesses striking features, albeit with unkempt hair and a scruffy beard. "Your name is Ailey, is it not?" Arya nods in affirmation. The man introduces himself as Jaqen H'ghar, hailing from the free city of Lorith. Before Arya can respond, the man beside her interjects once more, "You little brat. Bring us beer. We want beer." In a fit of anger, Arya hurls the firewood to the ground and brandishes a thicker branch. "You ought to exhibit some manners." And with that, she swings the stick towards the man, who, confined within the cage, can only retaliate with empty bravado, spewing vile insults. Jaqen's handsome face breaks into a smile. The boy is brave, yet lacks wisdom. Robb Stark's illegitimate son, Gendry, passes by and kindly warns Arya, "Yoren told us to keep our distance from those three." "I am not afraid of them," she retorts. "Then you are a fool. I fear them greatly." With a teasing tone, he draws Arya away from the cage. But upon halting, they hear the distant whinny of horses. They behold the golden cloaks of King's Landing. Would the gold cloaks venture this far from King's Landing? Arya muses, fearing they have come to seize her. She swiftly crouches down, hiding behind a dirt mound to listen to their discourse, only to be astonished that the gold cloaks are not in pursuit of her, but rather of Gendry, the king's bastard. Yet Yoren remains undaunted by their authority, boldly brandishing his knife towards the man's most vulnerable point. Ultimately, the gold cloaks have no choice but to retreat, leaving behind one of their fine swords. In King's Landing, the imp leisurely returns to Shay's abode, only to unexpectedly encounter an unwelcome presence, Varys, the eunuch. This sight fills him with unease, for this location was meant to be a sanctuary for Shay. His knowledge of it signifies exposure. He is unwilling to allow the woman he cherishes to face peril once more, thus adopting a demeanor cold as ice, his gaze sharp as a blade. Upon learning that Varys has merely come to invite him to a council meeting, Tyrion remains vigilant, retorting before exiting, "I dislike threats. I am not Ned Stark. I play the game. Should you threaten me, I shall toss you into the river." In the Regent's Hall of King's Landing, Queen Cersei peruses a letter from Robb Stark, the contents of which ignite her fury. "From this day forth, our nation shall sever ties with your dominion, emerging as the free and independent kingdom of the North." This letter serves as a provocation, inciting Cersei's wrath as she angrily tore it into several pieces. I must concede that she possesses a greater capacity for turmoil than her father. Your skill in shredding paper is truly unparalleled. Perhaps Tyrion recalls how his sister similarly ripped apart the decree from Robert Baratheon that named Ned Stark as Hand of the King on that fateful morning when she captured him. At the very least, she ought to return his father's remains to him as a gesture of goodwill. Tyrion's political acumen is remarkably strong, and his military strategies far surpass those of the counselors. Had he pursued his methods, perhaps relations between the North and King's Landing would not have deteriorated to such an extent. However, Cersei is resolute. She perceives all the misfortunes as the consequences of House Stark's own actions. Her singular thought is to eliminate all Starks, to unify the Seven Kingdoms for her son and herself. "Will you deliver a response to the Starks, cousin?" she inquired, glancing at the cousin who had returned the letter from the North. Their bond was merely one of distant kinship. Yet it was precisely due to this blood relation that he found himself at Cersei's disposal, even at the cost of his own life. "Of course, your grace," he acquiesced, knowing he had little choice. Otherwise, his cousin would take his life without hesitation. "Have you seen my brother at the Stark encampment?" she asked. "Yes, your grace." They could not sway him to yield. "If you have the opportunity to speak with him, please convey that we all think of him." "I shall," the queen replied. Tyrion regarded his cousin, who shared his lineage, knowing he had no alternative. Safe travels, cousin, he nodded before departing with the guards behind him. Your diplomatic finesse remains as agile as ever, Tyrion remarked to his sister, although he did not even turn to face her. Is there something else? Cersei inquired, ignoring him as she addressed the Grand Maester. Today, a raven arrived from the Black Castle. The wildlings have gathered, pledging allegiance to the so-called King Beyond the Wall, she stated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. How many kings are there now? 5, perhaps? Regardless of the multitude of kings across the continent, Cersei was confident that the Lannister family would eliminate them one by one, starting with the most formidable, Robb Stark. The rest would follow suit. And only her son would be the true king, ensuring the Lannisters as the ultimate victors. As the cold winds began to blow, the dead stirred once more. When Tyrion read this line, the Grand Maester expressed his belief in the superstitions of the Northerners. The commander mentioned an encounter with a dead man who had invaded his chamber, asserting that Mormont never lies. Clearly, Tyrion found the tale recounted in the letter credible. But the eunuch questioned how one could kill a dead man. Tyrion, not even considering the absurdity, replied, "Why? Simply burn him." Cersei's laughter echoed in response as she slowly rose, mockery dancing on her lips. He merely returned from the wall. You have already begun to believe in demons and elves. Tyrion clenched his teeth in frustration. It was evident that no one took him or the matter at hand seriously. Regardless of my beliefs, there is a truth I must convey to you. Cersei paused at the sound, turning to gaze at her brother. The Night's Watch serves as the sole bastion against the unknown threats plaguing the kingdom, yet Cersei remained utterly indifferent. I have no doubt that the brave men of the Night's Watch will protect us, she declared before walking away, with several others following suit, leaving Tyrion standing alone. Truly, his mad sister. Jon makes his entrance, following the demise of Rhaegar, beyond the wall in the north. I would assert that if the gods wished for us to die with dignity, they would not have me pass away while passing gas. The brothers of the Night's Watch were busy in a village beyond the wall, preparing the supplies they had brought for dinner. Sam, puzzled, inquired whether one indeed passes gas upon death. The man chuckled, recalling how his esteemed mother held his hand at her end, her gasp so forceful that the bed shook. He then mimicked the sound, prompting a disdainful glance from Sam, who noticed the figures of a few of Castor's wives in the distance. To have so many wives, one must be insatiable. Their conversation swiftly shifted to recounting their past glories, and Sam seized the opportunity to inquire further. Upon learning that his brother had grown up on a farm and experienced such things, he felt a twinge of envy, for he was born into the Tarly family, where such freedoms were not afforded to him. We're out of potatoes, go unload a sack from the sled, came the command. Sam sighed, turning to leave. Carrots as well, he added, pouting slightly. Such labor was always his responsibility, while the other 2 leisurely sliced potatoes. Suddenly, he heard a commotion and turned to see one of Castor's wives. Or perhaps one of his daughters, before Jon's dire wolf, Ghost. Ghost clearly spotted the rabbit in the woman's hands, and his approach only heightened her fear, prompting her to scream. No, Ghost, stop. Sam rushed forward to shoo Ghost away, who, realizing he had frightened the lady, reluctantly withdrew. As Sam watched Ghost retreat, his gaze met that of Castor's daughter and wife, Gilly. By the grace of benevolent deities, Sam was compelled to present Gilly before Jon, even though it contradicted their customs. He wished to take the pregnant Gilly away from this place, for she alone understood that if she bore a son, the child's fate would be to vanish into the snow-laden landscape of the university, disappearing without a trace, ultimately to perish. Gilly, already a mother, did not desire her child, after months of gestation, to endure any harm. She wished for her son to survive, and for reasons unknown, her intuition was strong, it would surely be a boy. If she remained here, her child would be snatched away the moment he was born. And as for her, she might choose to hang herself. However, this is against the established norms. The Night's Watch exists under the roofs of others and must adhere to their rules. If the girl is taken away, it would signify that the Night's Watch has already broken the code, and they would inevitably be forced to depart, left to sleep in the frigid wilderness. Despite Sam's stubbornness, Jon could only respond with harsh words to dissuade both of them from their intentions. In the desolation, Jorah cherished the last few drops of water in his pouch. Suddenly, he heard the sound of horses. Despite the haze caused by thirst and hunger, he could discern that it was a bloodrider's steed. The horse returned alone, and as Jorah stood up, he noticed a bloodied sack hanging from its side, containing the severed head of Ricardo, the last of Daenerys' trusted bloodriders. Who did this? Jorah glanced at the severed braid of the bloodrider, suspecting it might be the work of other Khalasars who despised women in leadership. Daenerys seethed with anger, her few loyal bloodriders brutally slain by the blades of rival Khalasars. When I deal with them, they will be even more displeased. Though furious, Daenerys felt powerless. Lacking an army or weapons, left only with those few loyal Khalaisars while others rode over her. Ah, they have slain his soul. Daenerys's handmaiden knelt before the horse, visibly distraught, for the fallen warrior was likely someone dear to her. In Dothraki tradition, without a proper cremation, the soul is condemned, unable to reunite with the ancestors. Daenerys knelt beside her handmaiden, offering what solace she could, her gaze steady as she reassured Yora, "I promise, tonight Rakaro will ride alongside his ancestors." She wiped away her handmaiden's tears, embracing her tightly before turning to see you, motionless, cradling Rhaego, and watching the scene unfold. In Daenerys's eyes shone an unprecedented fury and intent to kill. Her frustrated cries echoed across the desolate expanse. You squinted, offering her a reassuring smile. A gesture meant to ease her troubled heart. What she desired, she would ultimately attain. At sea, Theon sailed back to his birthplace, where he stood as the only surviving son of his father, the future lord of the Iron Islands. Thus, he can indulge himself aboard his ship, even usurping the Salt Wives. On this particular night in King's Landing, the Gold Cloaks are reveling with Tyrion, while the madness of Cersei continues with her ruthless slaughter of King Robert's bastards. The roots of this turmoil lie in the enigma of Joffrey's parentage. Whether he is the offspring of Cersei and Jaime or the legitimate son of King Robert, the number of those wishing for Joffrey's downfall is vast, as is the multitude eager to see the Queen Mother fail. Meanwhile, the diminutive Tyrion seeks to shield his family from harm, even if it means cleaning up after Cersei's misdeeds, such as sending the Gold Cloaks to the wall. As for Arya, her circumstances remain relatively stable, unaware that the boy beside her, Gendry, is indeed one of Cersei's coveted targets, potentially Robert's eldest bastard and perhaps the last of his children. It must be said, as a prince, he exhibits considerable intelligence, discerning that the child beside him is a girl. Upon learning her identity as a noble lady of House Stark, he experiences a profound revelation, feigning an apology for his previous indiscretions, when in truth, he merely jested with the young girl. Arya, incensed, chases after him, warning that this matter must remain a secret. It is worth noting that Arya has chosen her companion wisely, as Gendry has never divulged her lineage to anyone. Meanwhile, the heir of the Iron Islands, Theon Greyjoy, has returned to the Iron Islands, though not to the grand welcome he envisioned. Just as he finds himself at a loss for how to return to Pike, a woman appears, claiming to lead him to the castle. Typically, in such scenarios, women harbor ulterior motives. Little does Theon suspect that this seemingly frivolous woman is, in fact, his sister. Within the castle, by the hearth, sits his father, who he believed had perished 9 years prior. No, it is Balon Greyjoy. With the death of Ned Stark, Theon has finally returned to the Iron Islands. Yet his father does not welcome him. For years, Theon has been raised within House Stark, and now he is expected to kneel once more before them. Oh, the disgrace of his family is a memory he cannot escape, and he is reviled by his father's disdain for his perceived cowardice and the lingering scent of the dire wolf upon him. Balon clearly believes that Theon has forgotten his roots, standing shoulder to shoulder with the son of the man who killed his brother. And now, just as Theon is astonished at who might lead an army, his previously frivolous companion, his sister Yara, enters the castle. With nowhere to vent his frustration, he bellows that Yara was supposed to wait outside, only to find her standing beside their father. He can hardly believe this is his sister Yara, nor can he fathom that their father has sent her to command the troops. In this moment, he finally comprehended that he had been forsaken by his family. Stannis' ministers were presently rallying troops for their king, and their foremost ally was a formidable pirate fleet comprising 30 ships. He firmly believed that his king was on the righteous path, and was convinced that the monarch he followed would ultimately triumph in this war, ascending to the Iron Throne and becoming yet another ruler of the 7 kingdoms on this continent. He placed unwavering faith in the Red Woman's promise of a timely response from the Lord of Light, entirely oblivious to the gradual detachment from his true self. He even went so far as to shatter the statues of the 7 gods, which his family had long venerated. The Red Woman, too, was overly confident that she had discovered her destined prince. Cersei, infuriated by the dispatch of her golden-clad guards to the wall, confronted her brother in a heated argument. Despite her ire, Cersei's demeanor remained indifferent, leading Tyrion to a sudden realization. The one who had initially commanded the slaughter of those infants was not his jealous sister, but rather their nephew, King Joffrey. Now, Cersei finally understood why her brother had acted in such a manner and recognized that the weight of their family's responsibilities now rested squarely upon her shoulders. This reflection compelled her to reminisce about the past, whether it involved her beloved brother or her mother, who had perished after giving birth to a dwarf. Her son still needed her, her family still required her. As the eldest sister, all burdens were inevitably thrust upon her, a duty she bore as the current regent. Stannis had seized the former Targaryen map table, granting him a clearer perspective on the prevailing state of affairs in the war. He gazed at the Red Woman, this fervent devotee of the Lord of Light, understanding that to secure victory in this conflict, he would require her unwavering assistance. Yet, his primary adversary was none other than his own brother. He could not reminisce about these matters. He had no army, nothing at all. Thus, when the Red Witch offered to grant him a son, he was profoundly moved. His wife, beset by illness, had left him without an heir to inherit the throne. Aware of the Red Witch's formidable powers, he resolutely severed his previous vows. Jon, under the cover of night, witnessed the wildlings presenting a boy to the White Walkers. He saw someone carrying a child into the woods and, filled with urgency, pursued them. It became clear to him that the individual cradled a newborn boy. Gradually, he ventured deeper into the forest, only to be met with the child's cries and the eerie murmurs of the White Walkers. At heart, Jon was noble. He drew his sword, intent on rescuing the child. Yet, the moment he beheld the White Walker, he faltered, gripped by fear and hesitation. This very indecision provided an opportunity for an assailant lurking behind him, who unexpectedly struck him down. Jon's actions had crossed a line, leading to the Night's Watch being expelled by the wildlings. Only then did Jon learn that those boys were offerings to the White Walker deity worshipped by Castor. In order for them to survive, Castor had resorted to sacrificing his own daughter. Whether through his wife or daughter, every newborn boy became a sacrificial offering. Regardless of the truth, the Night's Watch had to depart from this place. They began to pack their belongings at dawn. At that moment, Sam encountered Gilly. His kind heart had not forgotten the woman who had captivated him at first sight, yet he could not take her with him and could only offer her spiritual solace. In Winterfell, all seemed to unfold in orderly fashion, yet unbeknownst to anyone, a peril was silently burgeoning in the background. Bran once again succumbed to nightmares, conversing with his maester about his unique abilities. Although the maester insisted that Bran's dreams were merely figments of imagination, Bran was reluctant to accept this notion. He believed in the reality of his dreams, as they always seemed to manifest. When his visions again came to fruition, he began to contemplate whether he might indeed possess some form of magic. Magic is a mighty force, and you understand this well. The power it bestows comes at a cost. So, Bran, are you prepared to embrace your destiny? In the realm of King Renly, he and his queen, Marjorie, were observing a duel between the queen's brother and his lover. What should have been a source of pride turned into embarrassment, as the Knight of Flowers unexpectedly faltered in the contest, ultimately being knocked to the ground by his challenger. Little Rose appeared quite unwell, for her brother had just suffered defeat in the match. She turned her gaze towards her husband, Lannister, only to find him preoccupied with curiosity regarding the identity of the valiant knight who had bested him. When the triumphant warrior unmasked, it was Brienne from Tarth who emerged victorious in this duel. As a reward, Lannister granted her a wish, and Brienne chose to become the Rainbow Guard of the king, a perfectly reasonable request to which Lannister acquiesced. Catelyn was brought before Lannister, and he certainly remembered the lady of the esteemed Lord Paramount. Catelyn sought Lannister's allegiance for her son, desiring his assistance in seizing the Iron Throne. However, this endeavor held no advantage for Lannister. Aiding Robb would signify his renunciation of the crown, for he was now the king of the Vale. Lannister Baratheon was indeed one of the contenders in the current War of the Five Kings. Despite Catelyn's clear intentions, Lannister's playful demeanor left her feeling uncomfortable. Although he harbored ambitions for the Iron Throne, he appeared as nothing more than a frivolous bystander devoid of any political acumen, leaving Catelyn in a state of bewilderment regarding Lannister's potential as an ally. Balon Greyjoy intended to capitalize on Robb's southern struggles to swiftly seize control of the north, specifically Winterfell. Clearly, Theon, who had grown accustomed to life with House Stark, was reluctant to press directly into Stark's stronghold, understanding that Robb would not relinquish Winterfell so easily. He sought counsel from his father, hoping to discuss the matter further. Yet, his father consistently dismissed him, leading to a culmination of long-standing grievances. Finally, Theon voiced his innermost doubts, exclaiming, "As if I wished to be someone else's ward. It was you. You sent me away. Have you forgotten?" His words jolted Balon into clarity. How could he forget that his son was given to another as a ward? In the wake of Robert Baratheon's conquest, Balon was forced to grovel, while his only son was made a ward of the very man responsible for the deaths of his other sons. His past weakness had wrought this situation, and now he unjustly placed the blame on Theon, who had been but a child at the time. Thus, Balon fled from his son, consumed by fear. Fear of the man he once was and of the truths he could no longer confront. Despite Theon's repeated assertions that he was his father's sole heir, Balon continued to evade reality. His sister still regarded him with disdain. Helplessly, Theon stood in place, uncertain of the cause of his sudden outburst, yet he knew that as the last living son of Balon, he must assume the mantle of responsibility as the rightful heir of the Iron Islands. In the tale of 23 Lies, the treacherous Cersei dines with her young daughter and son alongside Sansa. On the surface, the gathering appears harmonious, yet beneath it lies a web of intrigue. Princess Myrcella mentions Sansa's impending nuptials to King Joffrey Baratheon, causing Sansa to momentarily pause. Indeed, her heart has long yearned for the union with the king. But can such a dream be realized? Her brother now stands as a rebel against the crown, opposing the very Joffrey she admires. As the specter of war looms, one cannot help but wonder how the situation will unfold. Amidst this tension, the young prince poses a piercing question. Will Joffrey execute Sansa's brother? Sansa comprehends the grim reality. Should her brother falter in battle, his life would be forfeit. Yet, if he triumphs, her dream of marrying Joffrey would dissipate. Underneath this turmoil lies an overwhelming pressure, driving Sansa to the brink of madness. Tyrion, along with the scholars and eunuchs of King's Landing, clandestinely deliberates the prospects of Myrcella's marriage. In these tumultuous times, Tyrion contemplates the strategic alliance that a marriage could forge. Simultaneously, he seeks to identify which individuals around him are his sister's spies and discern potential allies worthy of his trust. Aware that ignorance could lead to manipulation by his sister, he extends branches of strategy. He advises the maester to betroth Myrcella to House Martell of Dorne upon her coming of age, while suggesting to the eunuch a union with Theon Greyjoy, and to Peter Baelish, a match with the son of Lady Catelyn's sister from the Vale, all under the condition that the Queen Regent remains uninformed. Once whispers reach the Queen, he can swiftly ascertain the identity of the traitor among them, and upon discovering the betrayer, he can eliminate the spy lurking nearby. In the Highgarden, who would have imagined that King Loras Tyrell would engage in a romance with his own Kingsguard? Both men, indifferent to societal norms, find themselves entwined in a delicate relationship that began in King's Landing. Clearly, Tyrion is concerned, for his sister is wed to Loras, and he knows all too well that his sister has never garnered the king's favor. Meanwhile, lords and ministers have already begun to murmur behind closed doors. In pursuit of this matter, he was compelled to relinquish the man he cherished. He understood that if his sister failed to conceive, the family would inevitably suffer repercussions, and the reputation of Lannister was already on the verge of ruin due to their clandestine affair. "I shall summon my sister," he declared, calling for her, for she was, after all, Lannister's intended queen. Regrettably, Lannister's heart was not captivated by this woman. It was not that he lacked affection for the youthful and alluring Rose, but rather that he had never held any interest in women whatsoever, despite the woman before him presenting herself with an alluring display and initiating a kiss. He felt no stirrings of desire. Rose, keenly aware of Lannister's discomfort, proposed a shocking suggestion that left him astounded. "Perhaps I could turn away, and you could regard me as my brother, or I could summon him, and we might engage together." Her audacious proposition not only failed to sway Lannister, but instead sent him into a panicked retreat, for he had never contemplated that his betrothed might uncover his liaison with his knight. Meanwhile, Rose sought to secure her position by bearing the heir of the dragon. News of betrayal swiftly spread, and Cersei learned of Tyrion's intent to marry her only daughter to a Dorne lord. Upon hearing this, Cersei's anger was palpable. The Grand Maester was evidently the informant and Cersei's pawn. Despite enduring a torrent of Cersei's wrath, the imp recognized this as the best means to safeguard Myrcella. Marrying her to Dorne was the safest option. Did she wish for her daughter to meet the same fate as the Targaryen offspring? Cersei fell silent. Indeed, the Targaryen children had all perished in their slumber, and she certainly did not wish for her sole daughter to suffer a similar fate. These outcomes hinged upon the triumph of war. In the Iron Islands, Theon forsook yet another opportunity to stand beside Robb, formally accepting the baptism of salt and water. As the sea washed over him, cleansing his lungs, he emerged as a warrior of the Iron Islands. The salt and iron coursing through his veins bolstered his identity as a Greyjoy, despite his father and sister's lack of faith in him. Due to the leaked information, Myrcella was compelled to wed in Dorne, and a furious Littlefinger confronted him, loathing that he had been made a fool in this game. Meanwhile, Tyrion orchestrated a clever ruse, revealing his plan to marry the princess to a Dorne lord to the Grand Maester. It was apparent that when the Grand Maester was apprehended, he would feign innocence, casting blame upon the eunuch Varys. However, Tyrion had a contingency. He instructed Varys to ensure the princess was delivered to House Greyjoy. Now, who was lying was crystal clear, as was the identity of the Queen Mother's lackey. Tyrion's machinations were astute. He had not only identified the canines around his sister, but had also uncovered the mastermind behind the betrayal of those once loyal to him. Tyrion's initial skirmish concluded in triumph.